Welcome back to Data Protection Gumbo. I am your host, and I want to talk to you about what happened this week. Because if you were paying attention to the data protection space this week, you should have saw something that I think deserves a real conversation. Now, every major player in this industry converged on the same stage at the same hyperscaler event in Las Vegas, and the pattern that emerged across all of them is telling us something important about where this market is going. Now, I have been in this business for more than 20 years across storage, security, cloud, and partner ecosystems, and I am going to give you my honest read on what it means. So let me set the context for you because it matters. Google Cloud Next 2026 brought about 32,000 enterprise technology buyers together in Las Vegas this week, and Google opened the event with a number that every data protection professional should be sitting with. 16 billion tokens per minute are currently flowing through their AI API from enterprise customers. That is not a projection. That is what is happening right now. What that means in plain language is this: AI agents are already inside enterprise environments, and they are acting on data at a speed and scale that no backup policy, no recovery runbook, and no risk framework most organizations have today was ever designed to handle. So when every major data protection vendor shows up at this event with this best material, that is not a coincidence. They are all responding to the same forcing function. Here is the pattern I want to talk you through. And I'm going to describe capabilities rather than companies, because the capabilities are the real story here. One vendor this week announced the ability to govern AI actions inside the hyperscaler's own platform. Not just protect the data that those agents touch, but actually audit and recover the actions themselves. That is a meaningful shift because it moves protection from being something that happens after the fact in a backup copy to something that happens at the moment of AI execution. Now, a second vendor announced SaaS native immutable air gap recovery specifically for the petabyte scale data sets that power AI models. Now, we're talking about training sets, vector databases, analytics pipelines, the actual fuel that enterprise AI runs on. This vendor is building purpose-built vaulting for that data layer, and that is a gap that nobody has fully solved for. A third vendor was recognized by Google as its partner of the year for disaster recovery and backup. And when you look at what earned that recognition, it includes AI query capabilities built on top of protected enterprise data, data sovereignty deployment options for regulated industries, and native cloud integrations across the full Google platform. That tells you something about how Google itself is thinking about where resilience fits in the AI stack. And the fourth vendor is building toward a thesis that production data is protected data, and protected data should be governed together as an intelligent graph, that one command center and one trust model for both resilience and AI insight. That is a significant architectural bet, and it is one I think has real merit. So when you step back and look at all four of those moves, that pattern is clear. This industry is collapsing the distance between where data lives and where resilience is enforced. The traditional model, where your production environment and your protection environment are deliberately kept separate, that model is under pressure because the threat has moved inside the perimeter, and the vendors who understand that are building accordingly. Now, something else to throw in here. I want to spend a moment on something that has nothing to do with product capability because I think it matters for everyone in this space. Now, one of the most operationally successful companies in the data protection industry right now, a company posting record revenues, crossing $1 billion ARR mark, running 10 consecutive quarters of growth, is being circled by private equity at a valuation that is roughly 60% below its peak. Goldman Sachs is advising, and multiple suitors are reportedly active. Now, what does that tell me is that The public markets are still pricing data protection like infrastructure software, something valuable, something durable, but not something that commands a platform level valuation multiple. And I think that is exactly the wrong read at the exactly wrong moment, because the companies doing real work in this space are not building backup software. They are building the governance and recovery layer for the agentic enterprise. That is one of the most strategically important categories in enterprise technology right now, and the market has not caught up to that yet quite. Now, when a category gets mispriced like this, private equity fills the gap, and private equity optimizes for exits, not for practitioner outcomes that enterprises depending on these platforms actually need. So, let me give you the data protection gumbo point of view on where this industry is headed, because I think the direction is clear, even if the timeline is not. Now, the first thing I see happening is that recovery becomes a first-class security control. The CISO is the new buyer for data protection, and the vendors who have figured that out, the ones integrating recovery workflows with threat detection, incident response, and identity resilience, they are the ones winning the next generation of enterprise deals. The days of backup sitting in the storage team's budget, disconnected from security operations center, are effectively over. Now, the second thing is that the AI data layer becomes the new protection frontier. Training sets, vector databases, analytics pipelines, these are not protected by traditional backup architectures. And they are the most business critical data assets many organizations now have. The vendors who build purpose-built cloud-native AI resilience for that layer have a real head start. And the enterprises that are not thinking about this are accumulating a new kind of recovery debt that they do not even know is on their books. And the third thing, which is the one I find most interesting, is that protected data becomes an AI asset in its own right. Your backup repository, governed, immutable, temporarily indexed, policy enforced, is actually your cleanest, most trustworthy enterprise data corpus. And the vendors who figure out how to help organizations govern AI to that data are not just competing in the backup market anymore. They're competing in the AI infrastructure market, and that is a significantly larger opportunity. So, that is the brief for the week. One conference, 4 vendors, one pattern, and a market that I think is structurally undervaluing one of the most important categories in enterprise technology. The future is arriving faster than most enterprise risk programs are ready for, and that gap is where the real work needs to happen. This is Data Protection Gumbo, where we cook slow, cut sharp, and never mistake a press release for a recovery capability. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay resilient. I will see you next time.